Canada has designated the far right-wing group Proud Boys as a terrorist entity in response to the attack on the U.S. Capitol last month. Canadian Public Safety Minister Bill Blair says Canada has been considering the designation since 2018. He claims the group only escalated in violence since then and, quote, poses a significant threat to domestic security. In the U.S., Congress continues to battle over who should be held accountable for the attack. Representative Rashida Tlaib gave an emotional speech reflecting on her experience.
What happened on January 6th, all I could do was thank Allah that I wasn't here. I felt overwhelming relief, and I feel bad for Alexandria, so many of my colleagues that were here. But as I saw it, I thought to myself, thank God I am not there. I worry every day for their lives because of this rhetoric. I never thought that they would feel unsafe here. And so I asked my colleagues to please try not to dehumanize what's happening.
And joining me now for more is CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano. Lilia, welcome. Great to see you. What does this terrorist designation mean for members of the group? And will this push the U.S. to assign the group the same designation?
Tanya, what it means is that now crimes committed by people who are tied or are considered Proud Boy members can be charged as terrorist activity. It also means that their assets can be seized. It doesn't mean that if they wear, say, Proud Boys T-shirts, they're going to be charged with a crime. But if they fundraise, if they train, if they travel for Proud Boy activities, they could be charged with a terrorist activity. And the funding part is important because the Proud Boys have been fundraising for multiple purposes. For instance, before the insurrection in the Capitol, according to charging documents, you can see that some of the people who have been charged were fundraising for protective gear, for communication equipment, and things like that. And right now, some of the Telegram channels, like Proud Boys Uncensored and channels where they communicate, they are actively fundraising. They have these crowdfunding websites asking for members and other supporters to send them money for either the families or for the legal defense of the Proud Boys that were charged in the Capitol insurrection. So in Canada, people who send money to that or people who are fundraising, those bank accounts can be seized and they could be charged with crimes. Now, in terms of the U.S., we don't have the legal framework to designate the group like the Proud Boys in a similar way as a terrorist group and charge people accordingly like they do in Canada. First Amendment kind of gets in the way of some of that, but of course people can be charged with terrorist activity. I don't see it happening in the same way in the U.S.
And several leaders of the Proud Boys have already been arrested for their role in the Capitol attack. Prosecutors suggest the group helped plan it. Will that impact the charges they will face? And what is the status of that investigation into the role they played?
Well, out of the hundreds of people who've been arrested or charged in connection with the Capitol insurrection, about a dozen have links to the Proud Boys, and of that, about half of them have been charged with, obstructing an official proceeding or even conspiracy. But in terms of just how they, whether they planned the attack or how they planned it, or if they planned it long in advance, there's not a whole lot of evidence showing, connecting the dots. However, there is evidence that they were fundraising. The language of the people who were charged shows that they were planning on doing something. And let's remember, this is not the first time they showed up. I mean, they had been showing up in protests and in other events to support the president and to fight what they call members of Antifa for a while. In terms of getting to the Capitol, there's plenty of video evidence showing people like Joseph Biggs, one of the Proud Boys leaders, leading a crowd of about 100 Proud Boys and people into the Capitol. The charging documents show people like Ethan Nordian, another one, walking in with Briggs. There's also Nicholas DiCarlo and Nicholas Ox. They've been charged with conspiracy. One is the leader of the Proud Boys in Hawaii, and the other one is a Proud Boy in Texas. There's a couple of Proud Boys from New York who are also facing serious charges charges. And these charges, I mean, the maximum penalty for some are decades in prison. And so we'll see what happens. Jennifer Psaki also told CBS News' Ed O'Keefe this week that there is a review underway by the national security team of the White House in terms of, in general, violence extremists. So we don't know if they will be able to, if the federal charges will prove that, or the evidence will prove that the Proud Boys planned this way in advance, that this insurrection was coming. But there's certain evidence that they did something illegal, that they stormed the Capitol, that they intended to do so beforehand.
Right. And will the Proud Boys arrests affect in any way, do we expect it to affect in any way, the impeachment trial of former President Trump next week?
Look, it seems like a separate issue, but it's also kind of tied together. And follow me in this. The Proud Boys, since the insurrection and since President Trump left office and since he disavowed the violence at the Capitol after it happened, they have completely separated from him. They have accused him of being weak. They're so upset in their communications and their memes and these chat rooms and groups about at the president. They're upset that he didn't support them, that he didn't pardon the Proud Boys or other groups or other members who stormed the Capitol, because they see it as something they did for him. They wanted him to fight to stay in office. And then in terms of his language and whether or not that led these groups to storm the Capitol and these people to storm the Capitol, in the charging documents of the Proud Boys that are part of these investigations, you can see that, you know, their goal and their intention was to stop the steal, was to fight what they thought was a stolen election. And all of this, you can track the conversation, and the dialogue goes back to what the president was telling them, you know, like, you got to fight like hell and things like that. So I think it's connected in a way, and I am sure the managers will use some of his messaging to the Proud Boys in the past, like stand back and stand by, and the Proud Boys offering to be his personal militia and things like that as part of showing that the president, you know, was in some ways activating these groups.
And no doubt investigators will be watching the activities of the Proud Boys very, very closely as all of this unfolds. Yeah. Lilia Luciano, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Tanya. You too.